Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and if anyone would like to sign up for public comment, please do so under the chat. All yours, Evelyn.
All right, so hold on. Who am I missing? Is it only Jeff that I'm missing right now?
Yes.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. On a cloudy day, feels like fall. Let's do a quick roll call. Pamela?
I'm just going to say your last names. Arana Ortiz.
Here.
Navjeet Bal.
I'm here.
Hyler.
In 1,000 feet, use the right lane to stay to the right.
I take that as a yes, John. I gotcha.
That was David, actually. John is not here.
John is not on yet. Is he in the, he is, can you upgrade him? He's in the attendees.
Keep right onto Blue Hill Avenue. Sorry, that's my yes.
That's okay.
John Hyler's on.
Yep. John, can you just confirm for the roll call?
Yeah, I'm getting everything all set up. John Hyler
Perfect.
is here.
Thank you. Jeff will be in at 8:45. Leonard, David Leonard. David?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. And I just want to go on record. Senator Mike Rush is in military
Leave.
training drills for the reserve, so it's an excused absence.
Military leave. All right. So let me start with the opening statement. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and justice. Oh, thank you for the slide. Injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library Central Library stands on a land that was once a water-based ecosystem providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all. All right. First item on the agenda, we have approval of the minutes.
Arana Ortiz? Oh, sorry.
Yes, yes. I was going to say, can I get a motion before you get the roll call? Can I please get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Roll call, Miss Pamela.
Sorry, I jumped the gun. Arana Ortiz?
Yes.
Bal?
Yes.
Hyler?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
All set.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Now we're going to go in review of contracts. All right. So first contract, so we only have one contract to review. And this is as you all remember, we went out to do a RFP for our catering services. So Emily, can you please walk us through the process and the outcomes of the process?
I tell you what, Evelyn, how about if I kick it off and then hand it over to Evelyn?
Perfect.
Emily, would that be okay?
Okay, got it.
Thank you. So this is, as Evelyn said, the bid of the catering and restaurant contract for the catering for the entire complex restaurants in McKim. A little bit of background, the library started doing this back in the 2000s. TCA won the second bid in 07, I think, 08, I think it was, but they started in 09. We rebid in 2015 and are rebidding again today. This year, as we have done in the past, we engaged Cindy Little, which is a restaurant and food services consultant, to assist us in this. Typically, it has been the CFO and members of the event staff on the review committee. This year, we expanded it and added Angela Vizaga, the Director of Strategic Partnerships, and Sarah Zafaris, our Chief of Staff. We worked with Cindy Little to put together the RFP proposal, And to put together the scoring, we graded the proposals on organizational overview, references, food services, other information to include diversity and inclusion, insurance, inspections, food safety, the timeline and staffing matters of how they would run the contract. We did tasting and interviews and event executions. We went and watched them set up events. And finally, financial projections. I will say that both companies did really quite well. They're both very well-established companies, at least second-generation family-owned businesses. They have some of the most iconic nonprofits in the Commonwealth, whether it is the BSO/Tanglewood contract, the JFK Library, here, of course, Harvard Art Museum, the ICA. But having reviewed all the proposals, we did score them, and while it was, I would say, relatively close, we do recommend staying with TCA and awarding the contract to them. And we're happy to answer any questions.
So questions?
Are we voting on this today, or?
It's a recommendation, John.
It's a recommendation to go to the full board.
Ellen and Emily, I'm just curious about the whether we had any respondents who were minority or women-owned businesses.
Sent it out to about 20 companies. Some of them were folks that we got through the city that were minority-owned businesses. We only had 3 people come through the walkthrough. The two companies who bid, and Restaurant Associates, was it, Emily? And only finally ended up with these 2 companies. They both had a good commitment to diversity and inclusion. Both are working with Commonwealth Kitchen, and Gourmet came in with City Fresh, which I think just won a big contract with the schools. They both have ways to get smaller businesses in to showcase their food, and they both had a pipeline to try to build other companies up or to bring people in to the profession. And I'll let Emily elaborate if she'd like.
No, I think that's a great recap. I think the other partnership element, the Cater to Fair, came in with an established partnership with the Boys and Girls Club as well. So they both had fantastic proposals. They looked at it really in different perspectives and different ways. But no, we're recommending staying with the Cater to Fair.
Great, thank you.
And rumor has it that Arepa Day at the library is pretty popular.
They're delicious. If you're here on Thursdays, you need to come in. Carolina's, I think, is the name. Yeah, delicious.
Any more questions?
No,
And
so
I'm sorry, isn't it TCA owned by Holly? So it's a woman-owned business too?
It is. I do believe she is less involved in the day-to-day, but I believe she is still the owner.
Right, her sons are now owners as well. So I don't know that it has quite the same classification as it did when they first came in.
Thank you.
Is it when you meet the sons, is it the son and her husband or the son's sons?
Two of her sons.
Alex and Andrew.
Huh?
Alex and Andrew Marconi.
Okay. All right. So sorry, John, I interrupted. Question from you?
No. So we're taking this to the full board for these 2, correct?
No,
Like
so we would no. So they evaluated the caterer fair and gourmet caterers, which are the ones who responded to the RFP. Based on the evaluation and the scoring, the caterer fair so the RFP team is recommending the caterer fair. So our vote is to recommend to the full board the selected vendor, which be the incumbent, the caterer fair.
Okay, all right.
And
Okay.
it's a 3-year contract beginning November of next year.
November of next year. We put it a year out in case we did have a transition so that we would have enough time for the new people to start booking events after next November.
All right.
I just want to just add and commend Ellen, Emily, and the team for an incredibly thorough review of both the experience and the finances. These appear to have been two quite strong proposals, but I think the devil is always in the details, and that's the strength of this team in evaluating where those details are. So this feels like a really good process, and I think we have a good result in front of the trustees.
All right. All right, so if there are no more questions, I'm gonna ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
All right, and again, the vote is to recommend TCA as as remaining incumbent for the catering service at the BPL starting November of 2023. Pamela, can I please get a roll call?
Yes, so the vote will just, where I put in insert selected vendor, it will just be replaced with the catered affair along with their address for the vote.
That is correct.
Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Heiler,
yes.
Hawkins, have you joined yet? Leonard,
Yes.
so moved. It'll be recommended on the full board on October.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Emily and the team for such a thorough work on this. I know that these things are never easy. All right, let's go. Audited financials. Ellen, is that you?
Well, introducing Kyle Connors from our new auditing firm. So
Yes.
as you recall, we did change firms this year after at least 10 years, I think 12 or 13 years with Clifton Larson, our previous auditor. And
Next slide, Jay.
I
Jay, can you
understand from Sean Moynihan that they hit the ground running. We had a good working relationship with them, saw them in-house a couple of times, a lot of remote work. I think, but the strength of our accounting staff, led by Sean Moynihan and with Eunice Andrade, I think gave us a pretty good result here today, and Kyle will walk us through it.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Ellen. So today we're going to walk through the 2022 audited financial statements for the library. Feel free to move on to the next slide. So we're going to discuss financial results, talk about how the audit process went, and certainly don't hesitate to ask any questions along the way. So just as Ellen pointed out, this is our first year working with the library, and it's anytime there's a transition, there's a large undertaking, just understanding how the controls work, understanding how the financial statements are compiled. And I just want to give a lot of credit to Ellen and Sean and Eunice for being available, communicating very efficiently and effectively. We had a lot of discussions early and often throughout this audit process, and not only them, but everyone that we spoke to throughout the audit process, whether it was the IT team with regards to cybersecurity. Certainly, Evelyn reaching out to you and having a great conversation was very helpful for the audit. So just thank you to everyone for being so responsive and getting us the information that we needed to have a set of financial statements for you in mid-September. So if you were to read our financial statement opinion, you would see that we're issuing a clean opinion, which, so to speak, it means that we didn't see any material in the statements that weren't corrected, and quite honestly, we didn't identify any material in the statements along the way. So we are issuing a clean opinion for fiscal year 2022. Overall, the operations, the net position, which is all of your funds together, decreased 12.4 million. And it's a little bit misleading to say that, it wasn't as if your operating funds decreased by 12.4 million. It was mostly the city managed funds, which decreased about 13.5 million, offset by increases in the DeFerrari Trust, the Associates for the BPL Fund, as well as the Merriam Fund. Majority of that loss was due to investments. You can move on to the next slide, please. So what I think is critically important as we move to what is hopefully a post-COVID world where we're back in person and events are occurring, is taking a look at your various revenue streams, seeing how they performed historically, seeing how they performed during the COVID year, and certainly where they are now. As you can see, the intergovernmental revenue, which is the state grants, remained relatively even throughout the entire process, whereas your contributions, your events, which really couldn't take place, the fees and fines, which didn't really occur either, all had a bit of a dip and have all bounced back to a degree. So I just think that it's important to view these as a trend line and see where you are compared to where you were a couple of years ago, as far back to 2017. And the same is true for the investment income. As I noted earlier, there was a pretty significant loss in investments in the current year. But if you look at it in a vacuum, and you compare it to the prior year, which had a $20 million investment income, it kind of evens out. So that's how investments have performed since 2017 as well.
Kyle, is there anything is there anything to be concerned about there, or just to unpack that loss a little bit? Like how to understand that? I mean, it's a big number, so it's just kind of hard to put it in context.
Yeah, so certainly 2021 was a great year for investments.
Sure. Yeah.
And so a lot of it is market driven, but certainly some of it too is these are all the city managed funds. So if there's any draws or distributions that come out of it, they provide the information to the library. And I don't want to say that it's not necessarily within the library's control so much, but it is information that's provided. And, you know, whether, like I said, whether it's market driven or they're just letting you know that there's draws out of the investments, I wouldn't necessarily have cause for concern unless, Ellen, you think there's anything you want to add in.
No, just we take a 5% draw against the most recent 3-year average, so we balance it out that way. Fund has gone up and down over the years. We tend to track it up internally at the end of the calendar year because that's how we base the draw. But if I go back to 05, we'll see that it was at 49 million, and then after the crash, it was at 39. So, you know, we have had our ups and downs, but as of last January, I think it was December, I think it was at 76 million. So you're seeing the market volatility, but I sent out the July flash report again yesterday, just as a reminder that, you know, we are up over 3 years, but like everyone, we've had some movement this last year. We'll have Sebastian in November, so that folks can discuss if it's time to make some changes or if we should stay the course.
Okay, thank you.
So overall, looking at the library's general fund, which is its operating fund, compared to all the funds together, the fund balance only decreased by $100,000, leaving the library with unassigned fund balance, which is fund balance that can be spent at the discretion of the library of 2.1 million, a little over. Typically speaking, a healthy target of fund balance, unassigned fund balance compared to the operating budget is anywhere between 8 and 16%. The $2.2 million put you at 12.6%, which we would consider to be a healthy position. And just as we reviewed the revenue trend, I think it's also important, if we could move to the next slide, to look at overall fund balance for your general fund historically. You know, instability would show this as having some years that are high and some years that are low and a lot of movement. And I think what we're seeing here, looking back to 2017, is consistency in spending. Obviously, your finance team is paying very close attention to costs and revenues that are coming in, especially with the COVID years that occurred. To be able to maintain a stable fund balance throughout this entire process is a sign of financial strength. So one thing that is new to the financial statements this year that you wouldn't have seen historically, if you look at the government-wide financial statements, is your lease receivable. And anyone that's involved with public accounting knows how much of a headache leases have been, especially this year with it being implemented finally. It was a very big effort, and that was headed by Sean and by Eunice, and we had conversations almost immediately after we were hired, identifying a threshold for materiality for what leases would be applicable and which would not, how they would be impacted. The library doesn't have debt, so trying to determine what the appropriate incremental borrowing rate would be in order to discount the lease receivables and working with the city. So, I just want to give Sean a lot of credit and Eunice for finding the leases, identifying them, and putting together a lease schedule to determine the present value. Unfortunately, or fortunately, because it was a good learning process, the library is one of the first entities that we've worked with, because it was effective for 6/30/2022 to adopt GASB 87. So, we grew and learned how to implement it, and best practices on how to go about it. And so without the information from the finance team and without a lot of communication, it could have been a little bit more of a bear, but it went quite smoothly. There was 3 leases that were determined to be impacted, and what you'll see on the financial statements is a lease receivable. I think it started at almost $1 million, and it worked its way down in principal payments to about $600,000 at year end. So there is certainly more information in the notes to the financial statements if you're interested, but that was a new standard in 2022. So part of the audit, especially with it being a yellow book audit, which means it's under the governmental accounting standards, is that we're required to review all of the internal controls over significant transaction cycles. So certainly cash receipts, grant draws, payroll, disbursements. We include IT in our review. We spent a good amount of time with the finance team asking questions, trying to poke as many holes as we could, and provide some communication on opportunities for improvement. I can say that there were no material findings, nothing that we saw that would lead us to concern of potential opportunity for fraud or lack of controls over any of your control cycles. Certainly, as we move into further years of the audit, we may look at revenue streams, significant controls over revenue streams that weren't material, just to see and make sure that controls still exist for those cycles, or other transactions. But we really focused on, especially with this being our first year, the material control cycles. The one area that we did have a recommendation on is providing, whether it's this committee or the board, with financial information, whether it's financial statements or a budget to actual, some means of financial information prior to meetings. Otherwise, we didn't have any additional recommendations. Feel free to ask questions. If there's no questions here and you want to reach out sometime after this, Ellen and Sean have all of our information. You're more than welcome to reach out to us in private as well.
And just follow up on one thing where you saw the drop off on contributions from I think 17 to 18. That was really a function of we got a big donation of $2 million, the Roman Trust, folks might remember, and the fund for the Boston Public Library was going through a transition, so they had pushed a lot of cash over to us while we were waiting for a new director. So that wasn't as big of a drop as you might think. If you saw 16 on this, you'd see it go up and go down because of those reasons.
So really appreciate, Kyle, you're walking through. And Ellen, I think I had a couple of questions for you, and part of this is just now being my second year on the going through this, it's starting to sink in a little bit more. So I thought I might ask a couple of questions. One is on the capital assets. So obviously it's basically furniture and equipment, it looks like, that the library owns. Is that a way to think about
Most
it?
of our, I might ask Sean Moynihan to have to be turned on for this part of the conversation. Most of our the things we own, the buildings and that sort of thing, are actually owned by the city.
That's
So
what I
they're
figured.
not on the trustee side.
Yeah, I assume that. So okay, so this is stuff that the library is a C3 essentially.
Right. So it's our trusts. It's the revenue we bring in through catering or for rental income. We get $4,000 a month from Il Panino over in the North End. It is any donations that we get or contributions from the fund, the associates, citywide friends, and then the distribution of all the trust funds.
Yeah.
Primarily, not exclusive.
Okay. No, that's very helpful.
And if
Um,
you, Najid, if you'd like a deeper dive, certainly Sean and I can get on a call with you.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll do that. That would be really, really helpful. I did find a couple of typos, Kyle, if that's helpful for you.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, page 37 in the third paragraph from the bottom, there's a reference to section 501c3. Right now it says 501c30. It's just-
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then 2 pages later, under government, on page 39, under government-wide financial statements, 3 lines down, I think you're missing a period between presented component unit and governmental activities.
We do, I have to admit, we do have a word processing administrative team that hasn't looked at these yet.
Well,
So
I saved them some time.
you did, that's appreciated.
So, yeah, Emily, I'm sorry, Ellen, I think I would really welcome just like 10 minutes.
Okay, great. And we're happy to have you in person too, if you'd like, whatever
Yeah,
works for you.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Ellen, and I have to say, because just a historical comment, we did had some buildings. The trustees had some buildings in the past, and those, we sort of passed hands already. There was like, I think the Norwood facility, wasn't it?
The Norwood facility.
And the West
$2 million,
Roxbury.
and we turned that over, those funds over to the city because the city was
Right.
using capital money to redo the archives down by Home Depot in West Rocks. And then I think the other one that I recall was when we had 2 branches in East Boston, and one of them actually belonged to the trustees and one of them belonged to the city. I think that was the end of it.
Yeah.
There was some building, some other building that we shared with Harvard and BC called the Needle, but that was before my time. So
Oh,
everything.
and also the old Kristen building too, right?
The old what?
The old Kristen building, the old Kristen library in downtown, didn't the
Oh,
trustees?
yeah. The Christine Business Library. Yeah, the city owns that now too.
Right.
And they use it for swing space. I think that place needs some work.
So yeah, so
It's over
anything,
now.
so yeah, so just from a historical perspective, anything that was like physical buildings, the trustees already, passed hands on those. So there's nothing we really own. This was a really good report. I actually, which had not seen in the past, the opening of it with the major accomplishments, it's kind of sets tone to the rest of the report. So I really like that, because we hadn't usually we just go straight to the numbers. But Kyle, that was a good, putting that in context was really good to see how we did.
Yeah, the MD&A is a good document. We think it's Lisa Pollock up in communications sort of helms putting that together. And then we tune it up when we get to the fall, the spring, and use it as the basis of the starting information for our testimony in front of City Council.
Yeah, but it's the first time I see it attached to the financials though.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of sets the tone to the rest of the report. So I appreciate that. Any additional questions?
So Kyle, do you guys prepare a 990 as well then for the libraries?
We do the 990. A few years ago, Eunice Andrade, as we've mentioned already, took that internal. So we used to pay our previous auditor to do that, but she took the tax filings internally, saved us about $6,000 a year. So we'll do that. We'll do that.
Okay.
Certainly, if the need ever arises, you could lean on us to do that.
Thank you.
All right. John, David, anybody? Questions?
I just want to let you know that Jeff Hawkins has been on the call, just noting that for the record.
Oh, hello, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi.
All right. So if there's no other questions, we need to take a vote to recommend for a full vote to the full board for the acceptance of the financial statements, the audited financial statements. So can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, roll call, Pamela?
Yep. Rana Ortiz,
Yes.
Bal,
Yes.
Heiler,
Yes.
Hawkins,
Yes.
so moved.
Right. Next item on the agenda, any new business? The only new business I have is the next meeting is scheduled for November 8th, and I'm going to be out of the country. So I need a volunteer to please facilitate the meeting. So who's that volunteer? So Pamela can then, and Ellen can work with
That would
you.
normally, we would normally do it, ask John Heiler if he would, being the
All right.
senior.
All right,
He's-
Mr. Heiler, you're on deck.
Seconded.
Oh, great.
Seconded.
I'm sorry. I have a bad connection.
That was a quick
No, just
second.
kidding.
All right, so that's the only,
No one can fill those shoes, so I'll try my best.
all right, so you're on. This is the only thing I had. Anybody else had any new business?
No.
No? All right, public comment. Did we had anybody sign up for public comment?
There was no public comment signups.
Okay. All right, so next meeting scheduled for November 8th. Mr. John Heiler has voluntold.
I just want to, Evelyn, if I may just remind everyone that this meeting will be in person. Please plan your schedules.
Oh, I'm gonna miss that.
Oh, geez.
Oh, gee.
No, quorums are so easy during COVID.
Mhm. All right, so if that is it, then we adjourn. You all have a great week. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
All
you.
righty.
Have a good meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You.